This is the Blockchain 360 podcast. Blockchain 360 is a podcast of interviews and discussions about the current state and direction of blockchain. Thank you for joining us today. If this is your first time listening, then thank you for coming. The Blockchain 360 podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at our website, blockchain360.co. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter at Blockchain360. All links discussed today are included in the show notes.
Hi, my name is Brian Nielsen. I'm your host here at Blockchain 360. Today's guest is Daniel Yim, and he is from Noblis. So, Daniel, what is Noblis?
So Noblis is a nonprofit organization, and we are actually a spin-off of MITRE Corporation, which was created back in 1950s after the war and Second World War. The U.S. government had created a corporation, a private corporation, with employees transferred from MIT's Lincoln Lab.
Oh, cool.
And became a nonprofit organization solving some of the government's toughest problems related to aerospace and defense. So FAA, NASA, US Air Force, those kinds of aerospace and defense type related agencies. And then Noblis was a spin-off of MITRE Corporation. Initially we were called MITRE Tech, and then we branded ourselves about 20 years ago to be called Noblis. So we're, again, a nonprofit organization focused on technology and research, and blockchain is one of the emerging technologies that we focus on.
And you're located in Reston, correct?
Yes, we are headquartered in Reston.
Do you have offices elsewhere?
Yeah, we have offices around the country, depending on where clients are located and what the needs are, and we're expanding by day. So,
what's the size of the corporation?
So we have about 1,300 employees right now.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay. So here we are. We're at actually a blockchain conference. Actually, there's two conferences going on simultaneously. One's on healthcare, and the other one is part of the Government Blockchain Association. And I know you from the Government Blockchain Association.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about what brought you to this point. I mean, to this technology. What drew you to the technology? What are you doing in the technology? And then afterwards, I'd like to explore, what Noblis is actually doing, some of the use cases that you're actually working on. If that'd be okay.
Sure. So Noblis has been involved with blockchain since 2013. Initially, we had an NSR, which we call, so NSR is an internal research project, and it stands for Noblis Sponsored Research. And because we are a nonprofit organization, all of our earning proceeds go back into the firm as investments. And this is part of a way we reinvest into our practice and our company.
Okay.
And in 2013, we were trying to look into putting visualization to how the blockchain data could be visualized.
Sure.
So back then,
from a visualization basis.
From visualization perspective, yeah.
Right, sure.
So initially, some of the government agencies were interested in understanding how the money was moving within the Bitcoin network.
Sure.
And we were able to help them identify that and show them visually how it all worked.
The money flows.
Where the money flows, yeah. So, but I think the timing also played into a part, is because in 2013 the value of Bitcoin was fairly low, and as well as the interest of blockchain technology and the topic of cryptocurrency was fairly low at that time. So the government looked at it and said, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's really cool.
Right.
But this is probably game money that children buy for their Nintendo or whatever."
Right.
So our research sort of moved on from there, and didn't really pick up again until 2016-ish, when the value of Bitcoin started rising, and the interest from the public had risen as well. and the government wanted to look at it again. And since then, we have been talking with a lot of our government clients about what it is again and how it works, and kind of looking past beyond how it is currently used in the cryptocurrency world and the financial transaction perspective.
Right.
How the technology can be applied for the government in terms of increasing their operational efficiency and how to help them save time, money, and et cetera. Yeah.
Right. So how did you come to blockchain?
How did I come to blockchain? So I spent several years, about 8 or 9 years of my consulting career at large consulting firms before I moved over to Noblis. And when I came over to Noblis, I was in charge of, I was put to take charge of a center of excellence called Economic Analytics for Decision Support. And our Center of Excellence focuses on several different type of emerging technologies, which blockchain is one of them. And I happen to share a piece of focus areas with my boss, and I happen to start leading the blockchain efforts, research and project efforts that the Noblis has put its investment dollars on.
Okay. So can you share with us some of the cool things that Noblis is doing?
Noblis is partnered with Sequoia Holdings, which is based out here in Reston with us.
And what's the background of Sequoia Holdings?
So Sequoia Holdings, they have a great presence in the intelligence community and the defense community.
Okay.
And they have developed a platform where blockchain applications can be developed on both the classified and the unclassified network within the intelligence community.
Oh, cool.
So it's more than just a simple blockchain application which can be applied to a specific use case, but they have developed a space, right, a platform where different companies and different vendors of different intelligence agencies can come and build their applications. And
so they've built the infrastructure out.
They built an infrastructure out, exactly. And it's an environment where various blockchain applications can also be tested before it's deployed.
So it's like a development space also.
A playground, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And it's an area where I think Sequoia can be competing with some of the larger players like AWS in terms of providing that space where blockchain applications can be built and deployed, yeah.
So are they building out things like just POCs, or are they actually doing something more? I mean, creating a sandbox is great because you can test out all these POCs, but are they actually doing a deployment? I mean, my biggest problem, and the things that I think that most people are always asking is, when is blockchain's tipping point going to occur?
Right.
What is that moment? And are there examples? I mean, actually, I heard a great example from somebody I interviewed earlier today. But other than them, I mean, I find it very hard to hear about enterprise blockchain deployments. I mean, have they built something that is something more than just the POC?
Yeah, you know what? I think I would sway away from talking, speaking on behalf of a company that I don't work for.
No,
actually.
I mean, in terms of the confirmation that I would be, I'm actually seeking is not their specific deployment per se. It's that have they actually built an infrastructure where there is enterprise things, and so the question would be is, have they actually taken that leap beyond just the sandbox type approach to actually having a deployment? Because half the problem that it's going to be, and it doesn't matter whether it's in the intelligence community or whether it's in businesses, it's that the idea is that they're going to be rolling these things out, and so they're taking steps,
Right.
baby steps, maybe bigger steps, but they're making these conscientious decisions to actually deploy blockchain as a useful tool beyond just the POC component.
Right.
So are they doing that?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. But again, I don't think I would be the right person to provide details about what has been deployed by Sequoia Holdings. I mean, I think I'd be more comfortable, sharing information about what Noblis has.
All right, so tell me
related.
about what Noblis is doing then.
So at a very high level, we are working with a couple different agencies related to vehicles, things that moves.
So like vehicle registrations.
Vehicle registrations with perhaps maintenance records.
So like fleet management.
Exactly, fleet management, as well as when the vehicles are in motion, how they transmit data with each other.
So a black box for all these vehicles.
Sure, you can think, I guess I had never thought of it that way, but yeah, that's a great way to put it. And how they share information with each other, and how to build trust within the ecosystem, and especially if you think about a world where we have mixture of human operating vehicles and machine operating vehicles
Autonomous,
working together, right? Perhaps many years down the road, there won't be any vehicles driven by human, but we're talking about an
I don't know. I
ecosystem.
think I'm always going to want to drive. I want to be able
Exactly,
to
I do. I do. But then the thing is, human are very unpredictable animals, right? You can right blink and you may not turn a right. You may turn a left and get in an accident with a autonomous vehicle that is machine driven.
Right.
So how to predict that behavior and how to share information and build trust and understand who the bad players are and who the good players are is sort of where we are trying to use the blockchain technology for.
So you're building a platform that will actually work with both autonomous and human-driven vehicles in a live environment.
That's exactly right, yeah.
And where are you in this deployment? I mean, have you have a city that you've been testing this in? And
yeah, we are working with several different partners on this.
okay.
Obviously, with a government agency who is mainly focused on solving this or helping this kind of think through with us, as well as some academia institutions that we're working with. But we're at a very early stage.
Okay.
We're at a very early stage. We're thinking through the use cases, solidifying how it could be, kind of developing that clear picture of how it could be used and deployed. That's sort of where we stand right now.
So is the blockchain deployment on this, it's not on the machine learning in terms of the driving, that AI aspect. This is actually on the physical vehicles themselves, like all the sensors that would be related to gas and or electricity, battery balances, tire pressure, maintenance records, in terms of all of that being managed by the blockchain. So it really wouldn't be like a crazy feed to the blockchain for how to drive the vehicle, but actually on the maintenance, security, and management of those fleets.
Sure, yeah.
Which was it? Yeah, okay.
No.
But I need confirmation here.
That too, in addition.
Yes.
Yes, that. In addition, so what you just spelled out, in addition to what you just said, the trend. If you think of each movement of the vehicle as transaction data, that's sort of how you can think about it, right?
Right or left.
Exactly. Yeah.
Speed.
And those would be considered transaction data, right?
Oh, very interesting.
Just like how I would pay you, and you have received the goods from me, or I'm paying you, and I have received the goods from you. That would be the transaction data within the cryptocurrency network. But for
So it's really using machine learning to make the decisions, but recording it on the blockchain, all these decisions. Speed, direction, whatever.
yeah, exactly.
That is a way cool use
And
case.
and that way, I think where we're thinking is that the the bad players within that ecosystem cannot backtrack any of the data that they have recorded onto the blockchain.
When you say bad players, define what that is. What is a bad player?
So think about a guy named Brian Nielsen driving down the road.
Thanks. Choose me as the example.
Driving down the road in 1976 Mustang, and just on a beautiful day, speeding down 495 in Northern Virginia, and you're swerving left and right, and the intention of your driving behavior is detected by the vehicles around you. And when the vehicles understand your intent, they look at signals like blinkers, right blinkers coming on or left blinker coming on. But if you turn on your right blinker and making a left and getting in an accident, like I mentioned earlier,
example, right.
that would make you a bad player. Or if you and there's many other indications of bad behavior, such as speeding, right?
Right.
So
is this solution going to be one that could be then used by law enforcement to actually say, you know what, not every vehicle then has to have sensors for these things, because the vehicles around it can actually act as a detector for it. So you could then have police enforcement from that? I mean, is that part of the use case for this?
Yeah, I think that's where the long-term vision is, right? And if you think about some of the recent terrorist attacks, where large vehicles like a truck or bus was used to plow through a large crowd of people.
Right.
So if we have an ecosystem out in the public roads where surrounding vehicles are able to detect some of the uncommon behavior, very uncommon behavior of different vehicles that are about to do something very ill-intentioned, that I think law enforcement agencies or any other perhaps intelligence agencies or defense agencies will be able to utilize this type of technology.
So is this going to be a reactive type technology, or is it going to be active where, let's say, we've stepped forward 20 years and now every vehicle has all these things in it, where then the blockchain would actually be saying, you know what, you're driving in an uncommon fashion and you're plowing into people, we're going to shut it down, versus let them continue driving for the next mile, hitting people, for that distance, because it's going to be a reactive aspect for police to say, I can't stop that because by the time I've responded, it's over.
Right. I think if we're thinking much long term, yes, I think it's probably going to look a little bit more proactive than reactive. Right now, if you think about the system that we have today, there's nothing.
Right, there is nothing.
There is nothing other than completely reactive. Bad player goes in and hops into a large vehicle and plows into a crowd of people, and the damage is done, and the law enforcement agencies react then. But yeah, I think the vision much later on down the road is to be more proactive and be able to stop and step in before bad things happen.
Okay, so using this example of terrorists driving into public spaces and damaging people, that's happened globally. So do you think that the deployment of this type of solution is going to be geographically, is it going to be a stepping stone? So say you have the U.S. is the first one, and then you have maybe EU players coming in and doing this, or is the idea that once the vehicles are made, it doesn't really matter where they're located, that the blockchain has this governance over bad behavior?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm
and would there be a possibility to disable this?
Right. So I'm thinking through it on the fly kind of right now, but because it's an area that I haven't completely thought through, but I think what would reasonably happen is that the administrator of the blockchain would be a government entity, right? So even if the vehicles themselves have sensors and capabilities that are able to send signals to the blockchain to be recorded onto its
Sure.
blockchain, there has to be an administrator, right?
Sure.
And that would have to be a government entity.
Would this be an AI-driven type thing? I mean, I use AI because oftentimes people interchangeably use machine learning and AI. I mean, to me, machine learning is the correct terminology, but AI is the label that we've been able to attach to it.
Sure, yeah. I think so. Sometime down the road, the AI would have to play into analyzing the data that is collected in this ecosystem of vehicles in a very fast speed,
Sure.
which a human is
Not going to be capable.
not going to be capable of doing. And AI, yes, I think AI would have to.
So this actually then leads me to think that this actually would work for an environment or a society where we could have fractionalization ownership of vehicles. So I could actually just own this vehicle, or I have a part ownership in this vehicle, kind of like a zip card type.
Yeah, like shared services almost.
Shared services, right.
Yeah.
And that would then also be deployed for like insurances, because, so this driver has to pay more, and using smart contracts because of their past history, when they're driving the vehicle, they're having to pay this amount of money versus the next person who gets into that same vehicle. And it's the vehicle is not the offending element.
Right.
So it's very interesting.
Yeah. So I think, obviously, we are particularly. I think it relates to both. It's relevant to both public sector and the private sector when it comes to blockchain application development. From the global standpoint, we're all sort of in the phase of figuring out who can develop what at what pace and how to deploy it in the most strategic and feasible way possible. And there's hundreds of different ideas that floats around, hundreds and thousands of ideas that floats around all around the world.
Right.
But it really depends on. I think that success really comes down to. At what size and what scale are government entities able to test these use cases, and how to expand gradually over time into different regions of their own country.
Right.
So in order for what the use cases that I'm mentioning here to be able to deploy globally, it will likely take many, many years. I can't even imagine.
Probably
because,
decades.
Right. I mean, because there's parts of the world right now where a self-driving vehicle, the idea of self-driving vehicle, or let alone a vehicle with GPS system doesn't even exist in certain parts of the world. Right. So for us to be able to have an ecosystem where the driving intentions and the data relates to it gets feed into the blockchain, and the government to be able to collect that and analyze in a speed of lightning, and stop bad behaviors from happening. It's far down the road, but it's happening. It's slowly happening already.
Right.
The minds of public servants are coming together, and the consultants and the technical advisors for them are coming together to formulate these ideas and helping them think through and understand what the feasibility is, and what the art of possibility around this new and emerging technology is.
So what are the risks? And what are the barriers?
I think biggest risks right now in the public sector, I'll speak on the public sector because that's the space that I know,
Sure.
Is the fact that we don't understand exactly how much it would cost to develop something like this. Right? I think that that adds to the complication and the risk factor for the federal and the government CIOs when it comes time for them to invest in something like this. So the natural way is for them to issue RFPs or SBIR opportunities in the public for proof of concept or prototyping,
Right.
small prototyping projects, just to be able to see, hey, what can we do with this small amount of money, and if we were able to accomplish this amount or this project using this amount of money, can we triple that and also triple the effect that we have witnessed in the small proof of concept or prototyping project is, I think, how they would look at it. So.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for joining me here on Blockchain 360. I've known you for a long time, and I appreciate you taking the time away from the conference here and to come and speak with us and the listeners.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for an opportunity to speak with you, and looking forward to working with you more down the road.
Great.
Yeah.
The Blockchain 360 podcast is produced weekly. Have a question? Want us to interview someone specific? Wish to hear about a particular topic? Let us know. You can email podcast@blockchain360.co or tweet us on Twitter @blockchain360 or at our website blockchain360.co.